One day, while Brenda, a single mother of a teenage daughter, was tidying her room, she noticed her new young neighbor, Mark, watching her through the window. Mark quickly tried to hide as Brenda went to close the curtain, shocked by the young man's boldness. Later that evening, as Brenda approached the window again, she saw Mark watching her once more. However, instead of closing the curtain, she made a strange and reckless decision to stay where she was and test his reaction and how far he would go. Mark was stunned by her unexpected boldness, but Brenda soon regretted the moment and began to cry. The next day, Brenda's daughter Isabella, who has a crush on Mark, enthusiastically goes to his house to show him her dress choices. However, she feels upset and embarrassed when Mark shows absolutely no interest in her. Isabella sits in her room crying bitterly, and when Brenda asks why she is crying, Isabella says that Mark is the reason. Angry, Brenda goes to Mark's house and harshly confronts him. "Why did you make my daughter Isabella cry? She's a beautiful and kind girl. Why do you always ignore and humiliate her in this neighborhood? We help one another here, and if you're going to live among us, you need to learn how to treat people with respect." She yells at him emotionally, but when she realizes she has been too harsh, she softens and tries to comfort him. Mark feels deeply embarrassed and retreats to his room, leaving Brenda alone in the living room, lost in her thoughts. When Brenda catches Mark spying on her for the third time, she completely loses her temper. She rushes outside and confronts him, ordering him to stay away from her and stop peeping. "Don't ever look at me that way again, and stay out of my life completely," she says sharply. She walks away a few steps, but something inside her makes her stop and return to him. In a different tone, she asks him honestly, "You're a young man. Why are you attracted to a woman my age? Do you really find me attractive? You're reckless, and well, I won't tell you how I see myself. I always end up being manipulated by others." Brenda slowly approaches Mark and tells him, "I will not be just an emotional substitute in your life, and I'm not a woman willing to have her feelings played with." Mark shyly agrees to all her strict conditions, and she secretly takes him into her house. A short time later, Brenda finds a beautiful bouquet of flowers on her doorstep. The card is unsigned and simply reads, "You are a beautiful woman." Later that evening, while Brenda secretly admires her reflection with happiness, she notices that Mark has boldly slipped into her house and is knocking on her bedroom door. She asks, "Who's there?" "Isabella," but quickly realizes it is Mark. She whispers that they cannot risk being together right now. Mark confidently replies that Isabella is out of the house. The following day, in the school hallways, Mark runs into Isabella and her sister while they are talking. Isabella asks why he is no longer home very often. She feels heartbroken when Mark hints that he is involved in a romantic relationship that occupies much of his time. Meanwhile, Mark's father confronts Brenda on the street. He suspects Mark spends far too much time at her house and innocently assumes his son is dating Isabella. "Is there something between him and your daughter? Is that why he's always at your house? Is he getting close to Isabella?" he asks. He adds, "I'll have to talk to him about this." Nervously, Brenda responds, "No, listen to me. I'll talk to Isabella and figure out what's going on." Mark's father accepts her explanation and says, "All right, I'll leave it to you." Terrified and shaken by the unexpected encounter with his father, Brenda meets Mark on his way home from school and firmly tells him, "Whatever exists between us is over." When he tries to speak, she interrupts him. "If people discover that I'm involved with someone much younger than me, I'll become an object of ridicule and pity." Mark follows her, trying to convince her otherwise, but she insists they can never be together. Looking into his eyes, she says, "It's impossible for our relationship to continue. Not because I don't have feelings for you, but because of society's harsh judgment. I'm very sorry." In a childish attempt to make Brenda jealous, Mark begins spending time noticeably closer to Isabella. Brenda quickly realizes that she is still attached to him. She makes an appointment with her doctor and shyly asks for some personal medication. The doctor notices her anxiety and tries to discover the reason behind it. Attempting to lighten the mood, he says, "I heard you've been exhausted, but you certainly don't look like it. You look wonderful. You're an attractive woman, and I'm a lonely man after all. Why don't we spend some time together as friends?" Brenda coldly ends the conversation and leaves to avoid his advances. Later that disastrous day, a fierce argument erupts between Brenda and Isabella. Old wounds are reopened, and the real reason they live in this isolated town is finally revealed. The truth lies in a previous destructive relationship Brenda had. The audience learns that Brenda's former partner was extremely abusive. He constantly harmed both Brenda and Isabella and controlled the family through intimidation and violence. When he was accused of serious crimes against women, he forced Brenda under threat to provide him with a false alibi. However, when the press discovered that Brenda had covered for him, her reputation was completely destroyed. As a result, she and Isabella were forced to flee, hide, and start over in a new town under entirely new identities. After reliving this painful past, Brenda confronts Mark in a rage and asks, "Why do men always try to make me look like a foolish woman?" She accuses him of using and manipulating her, but Mark strongly denies every accusation. "Don't ever speak to me in that condescending way," she replies emotionally. Eventually, Brenda breaks down and opens up to Mark about her fears and vulnerabilities. Inside Brenda's bedroom, during a moment of weakness and heartbreak, Mark comforts her and wipes away her tears. Then Isabella discovers the young man she likes sitting on the bed with her mother. Devastated, she screams, "You enjoy destroying our family because you're manipulating both of us and playing with our feelings." Disgusted and heartbroken, Isabella storms out of the house, leaving Brenda drowning in guilt and regret. Isabella devises a revenge plan and forces Mark to invite her mother to the village's annual festival. Her goal is to publicly humiliate Brenda and make her look like a pathetic woman obsessed with a younger man. Mark later meets Brenda in the nearby forest, and she coldly asks, "What do you want from me now?" He boldly replies, "I want to take you to the festival tonight." Sarcastically, she says, "I thought you'd be taking Isabella." He admits, "It's true that I've been spending time with Isabella, but she's just a teenage girl. I'm looking for something else." In another scene, Mark also meets Isabella in the forest. She urges him to continue with their plan to ruin her mother's reputation, but he backs out and says, "I can't do it." Furious, Isabella threatens to expose him and reveal his secrets to the entire town. Back at home, Isabella continues insulting and criticizing her mother for becoming involved with someone much younger. She accuses Brenda of being jealous of her and defiantly says, "I'm going to the festival with Mark, so don't worry if I'm late." Heartbroken, Brenda replies, "I know you're doing this just to hurt me." Isabella shouts back, "I'm not jealous. I'm devastated and disgusted by what you've done." She presents her mother with a painful choice, either live as a mother for her daughter or chase after a man. Sitting alone, haunted by memories of her abusive former partner, Brenda remembers how he destroyed both her life and her daughter's. At that moment, she makes the most important decision of her life. She chooses Isabella and embraces her role as a mother once again. Brenda arrives at the festival alone. Ignoring everyone around her, she rushes to embrace her daughter tightly and says with tears in her eyes, "Thank you for giving me the strength and confidence to live my life freely without needing a man." And so the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any new content we share.